Under the relentless Egyptian sun, thousands of workers heave massive blocks of stone across the desert, building monuments that will still be standing thousands of years later. Their bodies are pushed to the absolute limit, and to keep them strong enough to perform this superhuman labor, they are given a special ration every day. Not gold, not meat, a humble, pungent little bulb pulled from the earth. According to ancient accounts, the workers who raised the great monuments of Egypt were fed enormous quantities of garlic, believed to give them the strength and endurance they needed to survive. It was considered so essential that any shortage of it could throw the workforce into unrest. Think about that. Some of the mightiest structures ever built by human hands were fueled, in part, by garlic. But what nobody toiling in that desert could have imagined was just how strange and sprawling the story of this little bulb would become. Garlic would be worshipped as something close to a god and buried with kings. It would be swallowed by athletes and soldiers to make them fierce and strong. It would be used as medicine for thousands of years, across nearly every civilization on Earth. It would be scorned as the food of the poor and the vulgar. And it would become humanity's greatest weapon against the forces of darkness, hung over doorways to keep away evil spirits, and, most famously of all, the undead. This is the story of garlic, the humble bulb that humanity has both loved and feared for more than 5,000 years. Garlic is one of the oldest cultivated foods in the world. Long before recorded history, humans had already discovered this sharp, powerful plant and pulled it into their gardens and their diets. It spread across the ancient world with astonishing speed, treasured everywhere it went, because people quickly realized that garlic was far more than just a way to flavor food. They believed it held power, real power, the power to heal, to strengthen, and to protect. Nowhere was garlic more revered than in ancient Egypt. Beyond feeding it to laborers, the Egyptians treated garlic with something close to religious awe. They placed it in the tombs of their dead to accompany them into the afterlife. When the tomb of the famous boy king was opened in modern times, bulbs of garlic were among the treasures discovered inside, preserved across the millennia. The Egyptians are even said to have sworn oaths upon garlic, holding it sacred, much as others might swear upon a holy object. To them, this pungent bulb was not a lowly seasoning. It was a source of vitality and a gift worthy of the gods. Garlic was valued so highly in the ancient world that it could function almost like a form of wealth in itself. It was traded across long distances, given as an offering, and counted among goods worth recording and storing. In some times and places, laborers and servants were provided with garlic as part of their keep, a ration as essential as bread, because a worker, strengthened by garlic, was a worker who could keep going. To hand someone, garlic was not a trivial thing. It was to hand them strength, health, and protection all at once. And people guarded and prized their supplies accordingly. For a plant that grows so easily in the ground, garlic carried an extraordinary weight of meaning and worth. The ancient Greeks, too, believed deeply in the power of garlic, especially its ability to make people strong. Greek athletes are said to have eaten garlic before competing in the ancient Olympic Games, treating it as one of the world's first performance enhancers, a way to boost their strength and stamina before facing their rivals. Soldiers ate it before battle to fill themselves with courage. And perhaps most importantly, the physicians of ancient Greece embraced garlic as a powerful medicine. The famous healer, often called the father of medicine, prescribed garlic for a wide range of ailments, and it became a cornerstone of ancient healing. The Greeks also wove garlic into their myths and their magic. In one of the most famous stories ever told, a hero on his long voyage home is warned that a sorceress lies ahead, a witch who turns men into beasts with her enchantments. To protect himself against her dark magic, he is given a mysterious protective herb. And for centuries, readers and scholars have wondered whether that legendary plant was inspired by garlic itself. Whether or not it was, the idea fit perfectly. Even in the age of gods and monsters, garlic was imagined as a shield against magic and transformation, a humble plant strong enough to stand against the supernatural. That reputation would echo down through the ages in ways the Greeks could never have foreseen. When we reach ancient Rome, we find the same beliefs, but we also begin to see a divide that would haunt garlic for centuries. The Romans fed garlic to their soldiers and their laborers, convinced it gave strength and courage, and they associated it with the god of war himself. Roman generals believed garlic helped fuel their armies as they marched across the world building their empire. And yet, at the very same time, the Roman upper classes often turned up their noses at it. To the wealthy and refined, garlic was seen as crude, its powerful smell the mark of the common worker, the soldier, and the poor. This was the beginning of a strange double life that garlic would live for a very long time. Beloved by the many, looked down upon by the few who considered themselves above it. But if there is one thread that runs through the entire history of garlic, across every land and every age, it is medicine. For thousands of years, in civilization after civilization, garlic was one of humanity's most trusted remedies. In the healing traditions of India, it was used to treat countless conditions. In ancient China, it was prescribed to aid digestion and breathing and to fight fatigue. Across the Middle East, Africa, and Europe, healers reached for garlic to treat infections, to clean wounds, and to battle diseases they did not yet understand. People noticed, correctly, that garlic seemed to help sick bodies fight back, even if they could not explain why. And remarkably, this ancient faith in garlic was not simply superstition, it contained a real truth. When a clove of garlic is crushed or chopped, it releases powerful natural compounds, and modern science has confirmed that these compounds have genuine antibacterial and antimicrobial properties. In other words, the ancient healers were onto something real. Garlic truly can help fight certain germs. This is why, astonishingly, garlic was still being used as a medical treatment well into the modern era. During the Great Wars of the 20th century, when supplies of modern medicine ran short, garlic was pressed into service on the battlefield, used as an antiseptic to clean wounds and hold off infection. A remedy older than the pyramids was still saving lives thousands of years later. One of the most striking legends of garlic's protective power comes from the age of the Great Plagues. As terrible epidemics tore through crowded cities, killing untold numbers, there is a famous old story of a band of thieves who robbed the homes and bodies of the dead and the dying, yet somehow never fell ill themselves. When at last they were caught, so the tale goes, they bought their freedom by revealing their secret. They had protected themselves by drinking and washing in a special mixture soaked heavily with garlic and other herbs. Whether or not the story is entirely true, it spread far and wide, and that garlic-laced concoction became legendary as a protection against the plague. In a world ruled by fear of invisible, unstoppable death, garlic offered something priceless: hope. A humble kitchen bulb that people believed could stand between them and the deadliest killer of the age. Yet for all its power as food and medicine, garlic may be most famous for something else entirely: its role as a shield against evil. Across many cultures, and especially throughout Europe, people came to believe that garlic could protect them from dark and supernatural forces. They hung braids of garlic over their doors and windows. They wore cloves around their necks. They tucked it into their homes to guard against curses, evil spirits, and the dreaded evil eye. Some believe this powerful reputation grew out of garlic's very real ability to fight disease. In an age when terrible plagues swept through populations and no one understood how sickness spread, a substance that genuinely seemed to keep people healthy could easily come to be seen as magical, a protector against unseen and terrifying dangers. And from this belief grew garlic's most legendary role of all: its power over the undead. In the folklore of Eastern and Central Europe, garlic became one of the greatest weapons against the vampire, the monster that rose from the grave to feed on the living. People placed garlic around their homes, rubbed it on doorframes and chimneys, and in the grimmest of tales, even stuffed it into the mouths of suspected corpses to keep them from rising again. Villages gripped by fear of the undead would turn to garlic as their first and last line of defense, trusting the pungent bulb to guard the boundary between the living and the dead. It was even said that those who refused to eat garlic might themselves be viewed with suspicion, as though avoiding it were a sign that something was not quite human. When a famous author later wrote the novel that would define the vampire for all time, he wove garlic deep into the story, using it as a sacred protection against the bloodthirsty count. From that moment on, in books and films and stories beyond counting, the image was fixed forever in our imagination. If you want to keep a vampire away, you reach for garlic. A simple bulb from the garden had become the ultimate charm against the creatures of the night. Through all of this, garlic never stopped being food, and it quietly conquered the kitchens of the world. As people migrated and traded and traveled, they carried garlic with them, planting it in new soil and folding it into new cuisines. It became essential to the cooking of the Mediterranean, of Asia, of the Middle East, and of the Americas. In many places it remained tied to the common people, the workers and the farmers and the immigrants. And in some societies it was still quietly looked down upon as the smell of the poor or the foreign. This snobbery could be surprisingly cruel. In some countries, waves of immigrants who cooked heavily with garlic found themselves mocked and insulted for the very smell of their food, their love of garlic used as a way to label them as lower class, unrefined, or unwelcome. For a long time, in certain refined circles, to smell of garlic was to be marked as an outsider. And yet, generation after generation, those same immigrant kitchens filled entire nations with irresistible aromas, And the dishes that had once been mocked slowly became some of the most beloved foods in the world. Garlic's flavor was simply too powerful, too irresistible, to be denied. Slowly, over the years, garlic climbed out of the shadow of that old snobbery carried upward by the very people who had been scorned for loving it. And in the modern world, garlic finally completed its long journey to respect and even celebration. Today it is one of the most widely used ingredients on the entire planet, a foundation of countless dishes across nearly every culture. Enormous quantities of it are grown every year, with one country in particular producing the vast majority of the world's supply. Chefs prize it. Home cooks cannot imagine their kitchens without it. Entire festivals are now held in its honor, where people gather to celebrate the very bulb that the ancient elite once dismissed as vulgar. And science continues to study it seriously, exploring the ways garlic may benefit the heart and the body, lending new, hard evidence to a belief in its healing power that is thousands of years old. Laboratories now examine the very compounds released when a clove is crushed, searching for the real chemistry behind remedies that healers trusted long before anyone understood how they worked. In a way, the modern world is only now catching up to what the ancients believed all along. The pharaohs, the Greek physicians, the plague survivors, and the grandmothers with their folk cures were not simply being superstitious. They had recognized in their own way that this ordinary bulb held something genuinely extraordinary. Somewhere right now, in a vast green field, workers are pulling fresh bulbs of garlic from the earth, just as people have for thousands of years. Somewhere, in a warm kitchen, a clove is being crushed beneath a knife, releasing that sharp, unmistakable aroma that has filled human homes since the dawn of civilization. Somewhere, a string of garlic hangs in a doorway, half for cooking and half perhaps for luck. And somewhere, a person feeling the first scratch of illness reaches for garlic, trusting in a remedy passed down through countless generations, never realizing they are repeating a ritual as old as the pyramids. From the tombs of pharaohs, to the pages of horror stories, to the plate in front of you tonight, the little bulb that humanity worshipped and feared is still with us, still powerful, and still impossible to ignore. If you enjoyed this story, hit the subscribe button and leave a comment telling me which everyday thing with a hidden history you want to see next. And if this video taught you something new, smash that like button so more people can discover the strange and fascinating history of the things all around us.